Microsoft turned in a strong quarter, but the questions continue to linger about PC demand and competition from Apple. RBC Capital Markets analyst Robert Breza is a Bloomberg best on Microsoft for his accurate forecasts. He rates the stock outperform. Robert is on the phone with us from Minneapolis this morning. Robert, I see most analysts out there pointing to corporate demand as one of the drivers behind Microsoft's quarter and cost containment on the operating side. Do you see, is that what stands out for you, or do you see more to be, call it pleased about relative to Microsoft's much better than expected numbers?
Sure. I think, thanks, Eric. When we look at the overall quarter, I mean, clearly Microsoft had a great quarter. Revenues, beat the street by $400 million. EPS came in 7 cents above the street. When we look at the overall demand in the quarter, they hit almost every metric in terms of their 5 business operating divisions. The 2 that kind of fell short relative to consensus was the online services and entertainment and device, really more showing a little bit of consumer weakness in the quarter, while, as you mentioned, the business side really picked up in the quarter. And that's most evident when you look at the bookings growth of over 24%. That's really showing the strong corporate demand that shows up in the unearned revenue line on the balance sheet. So overall, it was a very good quarter. As you mentioned, the cost containment was great. They did a good job in operating margins of 44%.
Robert, does the 24% growth in bookings, is that, I should rephrase that, is that a sign to you that the PC refresh cycle is alive and it's going to continue into the next quarter and perhaps beyond?
Absolutely. That's exactly the conclusion we would draw when you look at the overall unearned revenue line. It really showed great growth, and that's really the demand that you see from the business customer. Consumer definitely slowed down in the quarter from an overall PC perspective. I'd call it around in that 7 to 8% growth range. When you really look at the corporate side, they saw PC unit sales significantly above that, almost doubling in the into the mid-teens range. So overall, it was a very strong business quarter for them, and that will continue going forward.
Robert, I know you took up your earnings per share estimates for fiscal 2011, also 2012. How much of that is a function of what Microsoft is doing in mobile, what Microsoft is doing in tablets, and perhaps the cloud? Because some big questions linger about that. Windows 7 just appeared, well behind what's going on at Apple and also with Android from Google.
I think the estimate increase is really, from our point of view, is really being driven more by the business customer. Microsoft has seen that demand across all their product lines when you look at server and tools, Windows 7 adoption. The consumer issues that you mentioned in terms of Windows 7 and tablets, I would say, continue to persist. Investors are taking more of a wait-and-see attitude around the Windows 7 phone, which is being released now. The tablet is still a little bit of a question mark for investors. The company has been very how we want to say it, I guess, cloudy to some degree about what their future is. And I think it's important as we look at that strategy, when you look at competitors like Google, like Apple, you don't really want to come out with a product that's a me-too product that doesn't meet the consumer's demand. When we look at the iPhone and Microsoft kind of trying to answer that, they took their time to come out with a good phone, and I do think Windows 7 will be a good phone. Whether it can overtake Apple and Android, I think is a bigger question. But when we look at tablets, they really need to make sure they take their time, get the product right, because tablets will fundamentally expand the market size, or we believe it will, and that's going to take Microsoft some time to come out with the right product.
Robert, we're going to have to check in with you later on Microsoft's progress with both tablets and the phone. Robert Breza, Bloomberg Best at RBC Capital.